All right, let me just get rid of that. Okay, it's supposedly 5 hours and 12 minutes, but that doesn't mean anything. She's gonna have to check it around 1:45 again. I don't know why it stopped the other day. Should not have. All right, you guys are on.
Okay.
Just say double check it.
So
We're gonna open up the meeting. We'll start, we're gonna start with wastewater, and then we'll move to water and DPW.
Okay. All right, quick overview on the sheets before we go into the specifics. I basically made printouts of the revenue and expense worksheets. What you'll find is that expenses have been populated for tonight's participants, as well as looking forward with some bond issuances, bans, and so on. There are some things that I'm researching out as far as some of our bond debt. I had one scenario where one of our repayment plans last year was $9,000, and this year it jumps to $90,000. It was created that way, okay? I don't know. Well, I think it was set up so that that year it really was a minimal bond expense, and now it's popped up to where you're going to need to be to pay it off in the 30 years or so that you're looking to do it. So there was one occasion where I found that. Again, the schedule confirms that, and that schedule was agreed to by the previous board. So it is what it is, but it just gives us a little bit of a surprise that where it was maybe a small payment last year has become a little bit more than a small payment this year. There's also a bond anticipation note that had a similar scenario 2 years ago where $50,000 was paid and then $112,000 was paid, and now we're essentially going to be paying $112 and change for the remainder of the band. So it's going to take some of our discussion and some of our understanding of our repayment schedules to make sure that we are properly prepared to pay this off in the time frame that's required. On these sheets, you have a little column to the right for notes. Okay, please use that as we go through, as specific things come up that you want to weigh in on, and let's say the conversation's not there, please write notes down, because I don't want to miss anything, and there's certainly, a lot of moving parts, so any input's going to be helpful. On the expenditure side, you'll see in some cases salaries have been put in some cases they haven't. One of the things that I'm trying to cut through, and I haven't had a chance to talk to Margaret, but I believe, and Gina, you might be able to reply on this also, it looks like most of the budgeted salaries did not include consideration for overtime. Now, snow overtime and so on I see, but the actual salaries, some of them seem to be below what we experience with overtime. Do you know, Gina, as to if that's accurate from previous years?
They should be. Overtime was always checked, and that was done by the treasurer to put the overtime numbers in according to
Okay,
the
so they were put in
printouts,
after, okay.
yeah.
All right, well, I just wanted to make sure, because when I was looking at some of the original numbers, they only took care of salaries without overtime. All right. Just a couple other quick things. There's, with salaries, we factored a 0% and a 2%. What I've been doing is putting in the 2% figure. I will need guidance from the board, probably in the next 1 or 2 meetings, as to where you're falling as far as what kind of compensation changes the board's willing to do. Okay? My recommendation, and from what I'm getting from other municipalities, they're trying to work within the inflation rate. And it goes anywhere from 1 to 2% is what I'm observing as far as increases for employees. So that is going to obviously play a role too in our calculations. Also pay specific attention to the discussion that we were talking about related to Bog Meadow. I think Bog Meadow is an important area that the board should really look to get some change maybe as to how that's handled. I was looking, Thank you, Kevin. I was over at the water plant and I was observing one of the maps of the Highlands watershed. And there's actually, there's a pond to the left of Bog Meadow that is in Cornwall's territory. And we don't pay taxes to Cornwall. So it seems to me that the only entity that we pay taxes for a watershed is the school district.
We have an appointment with them, don't we?
We do it the 4th,
What is the date on that?
March 4th,
10 o'clock?
10 o'clock.
You and I going?
Yes, and if you're available,
Yeah.
you're more than welcome, but you don't
Okay.
have to go. I did talk to one or two of the school members about that already. I'm getting a good feeling. I think the biggest thing was it's never really been, though it's talked about on a regular during budget time, it's never really been pushed afterwards to get it done. I think especially when we talk about the fact that Cornwall and the county and the town all do it, and the fact that it would really help us in our transfers, that we don't have to transfer much or nothing, depending on how we do on our water and sewer. That would be huge, to not to have to do the transfers again.
Is there a mechanism though that they could forgive it this year, or are we looking out another year?
Well, we've already paid it. So we paid the school's share in whatever it was, October. So what we're looking at right now is they're gonna go into their budget season in the next couple of months. I think like
Yeah.
May, June, July, something like that. That's when this is important. The other thing is that they would have to weigh in on this before they get into that, because $37,000, it's on a $27 million budget, it's not a huge hit, but it's something, you can't ignore it. On a $6 million budget, it's a very large hit. And the fact that the precedence out there is all the other taxing entities have waived it, I think the evidence is pretty overwhelming that a watershed probably shouldn't pay any taxes, especially if you benefit from it.
That was, Mr. Magrita, that was addressed to the New York State Realtor Services.
Office of Real Property.
Yeah, that started a few years ago.
Yeah.
The prior administration before you guys. And that just came out of the blue one day. We got a call from them and they started assessing our Bog Meadow, our water plant and stuff. I do have some information on that for you I can get to you. That might give you a little more bite into it, why it was done.
Okay, no, I think it's important, be important for the meeting.
Are you saying that it only started a couple years ago, or they only started looking at taking it off a couple years ago?
No, they started looking into it, of taxing
Okay.
us for it.
Oh, so
Before, a couple years ago, we
previously
weren't taxed?
No, I think
It's been taxed for a
we were,
while.
but it was,
I
but it
remember
was
this
small,
conversation a while back.
but it was smaller.
I don't remember being
Smaller.
at 37,000.
No, the guy came down and
Yeah.
he.
Well,
had
remember,
his-
we did a revow,
Right.
so maybe
Maybe that's
the
what it
issue
was.
here is a change in the
Right.
revow made a difference in the
Yeah.
rate.
You made a fair price on it according to him, but it's still something that we're questioning whether it needs to be paid.
Right.
Yeah, so again, that's an important aspect. The thing about the revenues too, we're gonna be focusing our next couple meetings on expenses to get all our expenses in line, and then we'll tackle the revenues. Most of the revenue stuff is just gonna be provided by me from the different sources that I have for sales tax, or what the estimate for utilities tax. And as you can see, if you look at the revenue area, it's essentially limited to a half to a dozen areas, and two of them are the most significant. One being your sales tax, which hits around $1 million change, and your real property taxes. Okay, so that's all you really need to look at with the revenues. I just want to point out that that's largely not going to really have any inputs from this group. It's going to come from information that we receive from the county on sales tax, chips, our utilities, and our gross receipts. All right, so we have our water department, our sewer department, and our public works. I did get inputs from all the departments. I would ask the board to maybe pay a little special attention to DPW, because obviously There's a lot of discretionary discussion as to what you want to do with some of these costs. I do have the file of the inputs, so if you want to drill down to the individual, both Kevin and John will have their specific itemization. I have the same copy. If the board wants me to make copies of this, I can, but I just didn't want to have 1,000 copies out here, so I just have the file, and I would do, you know, if you want to just review what's in the file that was presented to me, you can, you know, do that. But I was hoping that we would have good reports from our department heads so that they could kind of cover soup to nuts what they're looking for money for, and then this will be available for anybody who wants to look at it, okay? All right, so Johnny, do you want to start? Okay, so we have our sewer plant proposal.
You want me to go line by line, right through? Well,
I'm good. It's really what the board wants. I've reviewed line by line, so I want to just know what the board would like to do as far as the review.
Are there worksheets that,
That's what I have here,
okay,
okay?
they would be useful?
You want me to make everybody copies?
Well, let's
Let
try it.
me send this out, okay, because I don't need to look at it. I would say whoever's a liaison to that department probably knows quite a bit of that too. Okay, the first thing is the payroll, and then the worksheets are after, with the individual, department, items. Okay, John,
the payrolls, I don't,
you're not involved in the payroll.
I'll start, I guess I'll go line by line.
Yeah, O2s and O4s, okay? John's gonna talk about equipment, he's gonna talk about the contractual. And again, on your spreadsheet, we'll show you what was last year in the adopted budget and what was proposed for this year under the various sewer accounts. So if you flip down to the sewer accounts,
The very end of our
yep,
packet?
it's at the end of your packet, under sewer fund expenditures, the last 2 pages. Is everybody ready?
Go ahead.
I'm gonna start with, G8120. That's our sanitary sewer system, that's our collection system, and our pumps, 2 pump stations. Under the equipment for G8120.2, I put in for a camera system for the sanitary sewer means at $15,000. We've been putting in for this for like the last 2 or 3 years, and they've been taking it out. The cameras for, if we have sewer backups, we can see what it is, if there's a broken sewer line, stuff like that. It can also be used for drain lines and for the DPW, we can all use it, all the departments. As of right now, when we need a camera, we go to an outside entity, and it's about, depending on how long it's here, can be costly when they bring their trucks down. Like I said, we've been putting it in for a couple of years, and we're trying again. The other thing I have on there is replacement pumps for the Webb Lane pump station, $14,000. The pumps down there are 25 years old. They've been rebuilt 12 years ago, 10 years ago, I'm sorry, and they need to be rebuilt again. The thing with Webb Lane, why they're a little more expensive, is because they're down in a pit inside of Webb Lane, and the only way we can get to them is with a crane. So it's a little more expensive to even rebuilding them. I mean, I think it's $3,000 or $4,000 and that was 10 years ago to rebuild them, so it's gonna be more. And it's gotta be done one way, or, you know, whether we're gonna rebuild them or replace them, it's probably cheaper to replace them.
How big are, you know what the horsepower is on them, Johnny?
Yes, I do.
Fairly large?
They are 10 horsepower.
10 horsepower?
This is the thing, actually, they were put in 1988, ABS.
Okay.
So, and there's 2 of them down there. One of them is running,
They alternate?
Huh?
They alternate, or is it?
They're not alternating right now, and that's basically what I'm waiting for. We're kind of nursing it along,
Right.
and I wanna wait to see what we're gonna do and whether we're gonna rebuild them or.
They're not alternating because only one's running, or?
No, the other one will run, but we're basically going down there when we want that one to run, putting it in hand, and the other one's kind of a backup, as if we had, like if we have high flows, that'll kick on.
Oh,
But they're
okay.
supposed to alternate.
Design was alternating.
Yes, but they're not doing that, and there's problems with it, and.
So they're on hand on the HOA switch.
Correct. So, and right now, we're nursing it along until we figure out what we're gonna, whether we're gonna rebuild it or replace it.
Is the issue the controller, or the pump still running, or is it the actual control is the reason why you got it on hand, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is an issue with one of the pumps, but there is an issue in the control panel too. And when we do this, it'll all be
Okay.
taken, and that's why I said I don't wanna do anything, spend money right now, because it's working right now, there's not a big issue down there.
And if you had to switch over, the other
Correct.
pump will run?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. We're just, like I said, we're nursing that along right now until, the equipment total in G 8120.2 would be $29,000 is what we're asking for. Last year, we requested 23,000 and got 8. I think that's because they took the camera out last year.
John, when you say that money's been put aside per year for the cameras,
No, it hasn't.
oh, okay, it
We-
hasn't.
we
You-
budgeted for it.
You budgeted for
Yes.
it, but it hasn't been, okay,
No.
all right.
G 8120.4, the contractual expense, sewer pipe fittings, etc. I went over this with my liaison, Anthony. We put in $1,000. This is what we put in every year. That doesn't mean we're gonna spend it. What that is for is if we have a sewer break, there's lines out there, there's different size sewer lines that we might not have. There's a stock at the highway department, we might not have that size line. That covers us if we have to go to ESP for fittings, any kind of pipe with, something that we don't have down there. Like I said, we don't always spend that, but there is times that we spend some of it.
Is that so you don't have to inventory like an oddball plan?
Well, we do have an inventory down there now, but there could be something, because the sewer system in Holland Falls is so old, that there could be something out there, we might dig it up and say, oh, we don't have
Don't
that.
have it, okay.
And that's what that's for, and like I said, we don't always spend that, sometimes we spend none of it, sometimes we spend all of it, but manhole risers, frames, that's the same thing, they're more expensive. If we get a broken manhole cover, that's what that's in there for, like, we don't always spend that. Jetback service, to date right now, we've spent this year $13,150. There was some emergency jobs that we did where we called them in, but we've been averaging around 13,000. That includes our the spring and fall. We had them here for around 4 days doing maintenance, where we jet all the lines, but we also call them in for any sewer backup. Today, the snowstorm, we had a sewer backup behind Town Hall, which backed up the whole north end of Main Street. And that's what that's for. Sewer aid, we put in for 10 pails last year. That's $1,000. That's actually like an acid that if we have a sewer backup and it's grease, we put that in the line and it melts the grease. It's kind of a maintenance thing. Lift station degreaser. To date, we bought 6 drums and we've spent so far $5,940. We're asking for $6,000. That's about the average. We use that. We put that in both pump stations, and it keeps. It's actually a degreaser that floats on the top of the water, and it keeps the grease down. So the floats and everything don't get filled with grease. Because when the floats get full of grease, they get stuck. The pumps run constantly, so it's something that's needed in the pump stations. The gas bill for the generator, and also, no, that's actually just for the generator. Part of this bill is because we used to have gas heat in Webb Lane, the Webb Lane pump station. We removed that when we put the generator in, and now it's electric heat, but the generator is actually runs on propane. To date this year, we've spent $500.79. We put in for $500. I think it's gonna be cheaper than that because part of that has to do with last year we had heat in there last winter, so some of that's still included in that. The electric we left around the same because we have electric heat in there now.
Is that the 2,500?
No, this is the electric, I have $3,000 for the electric bill, because that also runs the pumps. Operations and maintenance, $1,000, that's for, if anything goes wrong at the pump stations, if we have to, I don't know, any of those things, switches, we buy paint and stuff, you know, that's with that, you know, if any fuses for the control panels, if a float goes in one of the pump stations, that's what that's for. The generator preventive maintenance contract, we have 3 maintenance contracts for each generator. And when you break them up, there's $662 each. We have a Webb Lane, Pellwood, and also at the main plant.
Who do you get the maintenance? Deep Power?
Yep.
How big are the generators?
Well,
I mean, is it, the one, Webb Lane isn't that big, I wouldn't think, right?
oh, that's pretty big.
It's a good sized generator?
Yeah, that's a good size, and the one at the plant is huge.
Yeah,
in the
one is
basement,
playing,
yeah. But like I said, there's 3 of them, and they come twice a year, they do oil and everything, check the belts, all that kind of stuff. Plus, they're really good when we do have a problem, we're kind of like, because we have the maintenance contract with them, they're there.
Yeah.
Like if I call them tonight, they'll come tonight, where a lot of people have to wait.
Have we had problems?
In the past, well, nothing down at Webb Lane, that generator's brand new, but, at Pellwood and at the plant, yeah, 'cause both of those, the plant generator's 27 years old. So, it's in good shape, you know, but we do have issues, we've had to get a block heater for it. It used to be that they had the radiator on that inside the building a couple of years ago, they did a big project where they put that outside, and it used to be the plant water that would cool that. That was one of the reasons why they put the radiator in there, because the plant water was eating it up, the inside, so,
I don't know.
but,
Give you some info
John,
on it.
I'm sorry, the multiple contracts, what does that total?
the total,
About $2 grand?
yeah, because they're $662 a piece for the 3 of them.
It's just under 2.
And that covers them coming down twice a year to service the
Yeah,
generators?
servicing all 3, that's $662 $2 a piece for each generator, and that's twice a year.
We have the same thing at the water plant, which is the water plant, village hall, and the firehouse. What it is, that company, it's like
Same
preventative
company?
maintenance. No, we use Gentech.
Why?
Gentech installed ours, and that's who I've been dealing with from day one. It's maybe something we go out to a public bid every May, like we do
Well,
our.
you wanna lump them all together, all 6, you know?
Get a better price.
That's what,
You know,
I'm thinking, you know, that's a lot of the things, and just for both you and all, what I'm really looking for is to relook, and even if we're only saving $200 to $300 a year,
It's still-
$400 a year, $500 a year, eventually it's gonna come up to thousands and tens of thousands of dollars, so, that's something that, again, a similar thing is the fact that everybody has their own cable contract, instead of us having a cable contract for 8 different pieces of the village, where DPW and, through us, not that you're getting a bill, and you're getting a bill, and you're getting a bill, because now we have no leverage. But if we have 8 different bills all in one, now we can,
We maybe get a better number.
Can we
What
get a
are
rate?
your numbers? You got 3 units?
Yes.
What are they, what are they as far as?
125 kW,
Okay.
we have a 35 kW and a 65
Are
kW.
they all gas or we got a diesel?
Diesel at the water plant, natural
Right.
gas, village hall, and the firehouse.
And yours is 1 diesel to the sewer plant?
2,
Two
the
diesels?
Pellwood's diesel also.
Okay. What do yours run a month, or a year for maintenance?
About 600,
So
something like
it's all the
that.
same. I'm just wondering if you put, you know.
I can put a package
They're
in,
both
we can do it
good,
with the
you know, it's
chemical.
not like, I'm just wondering if,
well, and
Yeah,
here's,
the thing,
let them bid against each other.
when they did here's the, like he said, they put them in, like Peak Power, when they built the plant, they put them generators in. I tried to do, when the ambulance corps, because they used to run off the Pellwood generator, when they got their own generator, I don't remember what that company was, it was a few years ago. We talked to them about doing a maintenance contract, all the guy wanted to do was sell me a new generator. This generator's gonna, yeah, this is not gonna let, and that was a few years ago, so that's what you deal with when you know, that,
So both those guys do pretty good maintenance, so
Right.
it's, you know.
We can put a package together and do, we can incorporate it with our chemical bids.
and incorporate it with the town as well, with their generators, and see if we can't get one guy to do, I don't know, do they also have?
They have some generators.
You got a generator on the sewer plant?
Sewer plant, they have their pump station, they have one at the town garage,
Right.
their police station has.
We don't necessarily have to wait for them, so let's put ours together,
I'll put something together.
but also let's contact Bob, see if they're willing to say, and see if these 2 companies in particular are like, look, we have 9 generators, not 3 and not 6. We have 9.
I'm gonna put it-
Do one for free. Don't even like a, let's get one for free, or some, at least it's $300, this is $500-600. You know, so let's see what we can do and see if the town's willing to go in on it with us, and that way it gives us more pull.
Usually we can do that, have a bid opening for, deal with that in May, so it'll take effect June 1st, we could do it annually every year. Get a bid package out like we do the chemicals.
Yeah, again, budget for what you are
Yes.
used to doing, and then work on getting those rates, because ultimately you could have a surplus if we get some good
That's what
economies of scale. And that's kind of the way we wanna approach it.
I'm sorry, continue, Jim.
Pellwood pump station, fuel, because that is a diesel, generator. We usually, I mean, we filled it up, I gotta look back in the records, I think it was 3 years ago. And before that, it was over 10 years that they filled it up, but I mean, if we had a big blackout, we got generators constantly running, we're gonna have to put fuel in it, that's why we put the $200 there, so we have something there in case it does run out of fuel.
John, let me ask you with that, when you're mentioning years, you mean the fuel is there for several years?
Yeah, there's an underground tank there.
It doesn't get
It's
maybe,
diesel, right?
yeah, but still, there's, you know,
Do
fuel starts to get issues after, well, gasoline especially, but diesel fuel even. I annually, with anything I have diesel, I rotate that fuel because the fuel starts to age. And, I just, you know, I'm not saying it's gasoline. Today's gasoline with the ethanol and everything is really bad. You gotta, you know, if you don't use that fuel in like 6 to 9 months, you could end up having issues. But with diesel, we might wanna look into how much we should be getting that stuff, either running it or moving that diesel to trucks or something and then replenishing it with new diesel. Because I just don't know what that diesel will do when you're having to run those generators, if in fact there could be some degraded performance and or damage.
Is there an additive you can put for?
Well,
There is an additive.
yeah, there is an additive, and the generators, down there, every generator, tests once a week.
Okay.
So, I mean, they didn't have problems, I understand what he's saying, I mean, like,
How big is the tank?
I think it's 200-gallon tank. But, like I said, the ambulance corps used to run off of that, now they have their own generator, so, but that's what that,
What we should do is include that as your regular monthly annual maintenance. Check into, from a professional, what's the length of diesel, back it up a little bit so we're not in any kind of issue, it's, you know, you're saying 6 to 9 months to a
That's
year.
gasoline.
Right.
Diesel
Well,
probably has a
however long,
longer shelf life.
But that should be part of our regular, maintenance program where you're, you know, every 9 months, or every year, every 2 years, we rotate out the diesel, unless you already have a record of, we had 3 storms, this diesel's already been rotated out because we used it. Now we put new diesel in, the next time we rotate it out is 2015.
How long do the diesels run when they run their weekly cycle?
About
20 minutes?
45 minutes. The one at Fellwood's about a half an hour, 45 minutes, because it runs and it's got a cool down.
Right.
And the same one at the plant, because they're older generators, so they have a cool down period. The one down at Webb Lane runs, shuts off, and, you know, that's done.
So basically you put 200 gallons in and you could probably only burn maybe, just if you don't have any
Right.
emergencies, it starts 50 times a year, whatever, and then runs for
Right.
half hour each time,
Yeah.
45 minutes.
And like I said,
You're not
obviously-
gonna deplete the tank in quite a while, yeah.
I think when they, because that all got built in 88, all that, when they put Pellwood in, they ran that into the Pellwood pump station. That's when they filled it up the first time, and I mean, I was at, I think it was 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, that they had a problem, and they didn't even realize, oh, that's right, we're out of oil, because the generator guys were down, the generator wouldn't run. And even they were baffled for a little while, and like, there's no fuel going to it, and the tank was empty. So that was the first time that they filled it up since they built it.
How are your generators, the 2 big ones at the plant, what kind of shape are they in?
They're in good shape. I mean, they're 27 years old. There's only one down there, but it's in good shape. I mean, they've done, over the years, through the maintenance contract and other things, they've done a lot of work to it.
What are 2? Are there 2 pumps down there? Is that what I'm thinking of? You said there were 2 down at the plant. Is that the pumps or the generator? 2 big pumps? At the plant? No? All right.
No,
My concern is particularly on the big generator, if you're saying it's in really good shape, that's something that in your budget, and I don't wanna jump ahead, that you don't, how much is that generator?
There's a lot of money.
The big one?
honestly, I wouldn't even know off the top of my head.
The only reason I'm bringing it up is these are the things where now that we're being new with the budget, that big generator, even though it's in good shape today, when we talk about 3, 5, and 10, and 15-year plans, we need to budget now for it breaking down in 5 to 10 years, so that we don't have to put $100,000 into it. We put a couple $1,000s every year, and even if it is an extra $50,000, at least we met it halfway. And then we don't have to come up with $50,000 last minute and quickly. So that's what I'm more concerned about in your, like with you, the one you bring up, the replacement pumps at Wet Lane. These are the budgets that I wanna, on a lot of these different things, we need $1,000 here, $2,000 here, even if it's not part of your budget today. We need to get these into the budget now, so that in 5 years, there is no, I really need $10,000, it's already there, because we budgeted it over the last 3 to 5 years. But I didn't realize there was one generator, but that's something that, as much as we're gonna cut, I wanna make sure.
I can cut that one.
Right, so let's put $50,000 and I'll cut that, and that'll be good. But just so you understand what I'm saying, John?
Mhm.
Those are my concerns, particularly with your older equipment. Even if it's not up today, or this year or next year, we've gotta start budgeting for it now.
Ballpark though, aren't they about 10,000?
Got the diesel.
Oh,
Diesel well.
never mind.
I'm sorry, John, continue.
Where did
Electric.
Okay, to date, Electric Fellwood, to date, we paid $1207.64. We got $1,300 is what I put in for, so we're pretty much in the park there. Operation and maintenance, $1,000 again, because that's the same thing like Webb Lane. If anything goes wrong with the floats at Pellwood, stuff like that, we have the money for that. generator and pump service, I put $2,000 in. This is kinda what you're talking, because we replaced the pumps at Elwood, we're getting ready to do the rails. There's check valves that we wanna get done, and we budgeted for that in this past budget. I think there's other things that we wanted to do. We're talking about replacing the electrical panels and stuff down there, and that's where I kinda wanna start saving for that, because once we do that, everything down there besides that generator will be new. Yes,
So they're working, but you're putting money aside so that we have it.
correct.
But that's what I'm looking for.
Did we replace the check valves and?
No, that's, actually, it's in our
This year.
budget right now, and I gotta, wait for it to get a little warmer, but I have some prices on that, but we do have the money to do that, and once that's done, the only thing left is really the electrical panels, and I think we're just gonna do certain things in the electrical panels, and guts and stuff. I think there's probably panels that are down there that aren't even needed right now, that can be taken out, but I'm not an electrician, we'll see. I was told that by somebody, but I don't know if it's, And, again, the general generator preventive maintenance contract, $662 with Elwood. And then Havens Road, which is down by, the village garage. We have pumps down there. The electric, we put in $2,200. To date, right now, it's $2,143.86 is what we paid. And then operation and maintenance, we have tanks down there, the flow equalization facility. There's valves and stuff down there that we go down. There's air blowers down there when we fill those tanks up, so that's what that $1,000 is for. We keep it there in case something down there breaks, if a valve breaks. We buy filters for the air blowers that are down there, and we take it out of that. And the total contractual expense total is $36,040. Last year, it was $40,100.
And John, you feel that the approximately 10% reduction is workable? You didn't necessarily skimp on anything big time, right?
No, not in that, no.
Okay. Okay, great. Any board members have any questions? Okay.
That's,
On the camera, how often, and again, we're looking at, as the years go by, more and more things with our roads are gonna be issues. The ballpark, I'm not gonna ask you to own up to it, ballpark, what did we spend this past year for camera?
I know Pat spent quite a bit of money on over behind Durham's. They had a big drainage problem, and he had them cook here that day. And then, again, when we had this catch basin down here, when we had the odor, and they had the fire department and all, we had cameras in here, Cook was here that day. I would say it's between $5,000 and $6,000 all together.
Okay. And the Web Lane,
Oh, I'm sorry.
no, you're good.
Just so that everybody knows, the other thing I have is, when a person in their house has a sewer backup, right, and this is in the, whatever the codes, however they work this, when we go to their house, they call us, oh, my sewer line's backed up. What we tell them, and this is the policy, the village's policy, well, you have to prove it to us
Right.
that it's our problem. Because right away, the homeowners are like, oh, it's a sewer, it's gotta be the sewer main. Now, the sewer main's easy. We go, we pop the manhole, the sewer main's running. But it could actually still be out in the street, broken in the street. It's just off the sidewalk, whatever. We tell the homeowner, you have to prove it to us that it's our problem, we're not digging it. And they have to go get a plumber and stuff. And there has been times where they've gotten Roto-Rooter and other people that have come in and say, oh, no, I cambered it, and you know, my camera stops here, but that's out in the road. If we had our own camera to be able to look at some of this, it would save the village a little bit of money because we've dug sewer lines that weren't our problem. Where we went by what the homeowner said, we saw bogus camera footage that they gave us, and that's what the policy says. If we see, oh yeah, it is blocked, okay, I guess that's in the road, it's their camera footage that they're giving us. We end up digging it up and find out that it is up in their yard. Where if we had our own camera where we could do this, we'd say, no, that's, you know, that would save a little bit of money too.
So it sounds like a tool that is, its payback is relatively quick,
Right.
because maybe half dozen of those where you don't have to expend any resources to do a digging will pay for the $20-something thousand.
Correct.
Okay, well, that's good, that, you know, it sounds like something useful.
With the web lane, sorry, Charlie,
Oh,
go ahead.
just on this tail end, when you do dig it up and find out that the problem is on the property owner's property,
Right.
we don't charge back?
No, we don't fix it for them,
No, they go to a certain point. When they go to
but
the
yeah,
curb,
we'll go to the curb,
Go to the
but
curb and that's it.
you know, we dug it before, and we're like, there's nothing wrong with our sewer line, and come, oh yeah, it's right on the edge of their property line, but the camera footage, that's the only policy, if they give us camera footage showing that, and you kinda think, oh yeah, it's right here in the street, this is, you know, they put marks and stuff, a roto-rooter's good for it, they right away, oh, this is the village's problem. We end up, all right, we're going by their word, and we go out there, yep, they got it marked here, we dig it up, and there's nothing wrong with our line. And it ends up being in their property, where if we had a camera, in certain circumstances, we could look for ourselves. Because the homeowner, you know, there's gonna be times where if we'd have to go camera it to the homeowner's house, if they don't let us in there and do that, we're not gonna get that footage, but it's happened before. And all we really do is fill it in, and but we don't charge them anything,
Does
or
the
they haven't.
does the camera reflect the footage on the film?
Yes, if you can buy cameras like that, yes.
Is that the one you think
You
of?
have one, you can.
Yeah,
Did
I'd
it tell you
rather
10, 15, 16, 17, and you, yeah.
I just rather refrain out of that subject due to my conflict. I have a
I
business
understand
and
the
I do
conflict.
that.
Okay, I'm just asking the information on the footage.
No, he's saying, but I'm saying.
They
you-
do have footage counters,
Right.
and with the camera, this is no interest with the village, this is me speaking as Kevin Hurst. The camera system has a built-in transmitter. I can trace where the camera head is, and that can give me the
You
direct
can mark it
location.
out above, and so you
And
go to the
go
edge of
by
the curb
footage.
and see, it's on this side, it's that side, and
I can
then,
go by footage, or I can go by locate.
yeah, okay.
Sounds like an important tool, I would say. right?
No, it is,
With,
because you can handle a lot of disputes without even digging anything up, you know, I mean.
I know in New York City, with me, they use it all the
Right.
time. Mostly to say it's the homeowners.
Take pictures of you, I don't even lie to yourself. With the wet lane, when you say you're nursing it, the pumps, the ones that need to alter and whatnot.
Right.
How many years till we have to get those rebuilt?
Oh, they'd have to be rebuilt this year. I mean, it's nerve wracking now for me,
We
worrying
can't-
about it.
Can't push it off one more year?
I mean,
Here's my question. When I look at 14,000 for new and 3,000 for rebuilt, and I get 10 years out of it, I'm for rebuilt. But I wouldn't mind putting the money in, that's what we're talking about. If you guys feel you can hold on, putting some of the money in now and next year, and getting new and getting 20 years out of it. I'd rather do that.
Maybe an alternator control would buy you some more time, because now you're using both pumps. You know what I mean, you're cycling this one on, this one runs, and then you're not
Right.
relying totally on one pump. And just from sitting and not starting, and you say you're doing it manually, they need to run.
Right.
You know, maybe you can start with the controller, and then, you know, when one pump goes, you can put it on HOA, automatic, or hand, and then run it till you rebuild that one or something, I don't know how to do it.
And I'm looking to work with you. I would rather give you a new pump down there. I don't wanna pay for the 3,000, maybe only get 8 years, 7 years out of it, who knows, a rebuild. And then we have this discussion again, we're paying another 3, we're at 20, we have the warranty plus the fact that, you know, a new pump What are you getting out of a new pump? 20 years?
Well, they were put in 1988.
That's a good run.
And
You may not,
rebuild
you may not
pumps.
get that.
Gotta get
Yeah,
that-
you might not,
You might
yeah,
get that
you
out of
might
the
not
pump.
get it out of a new one.
That was good copper winding back then.
Okay, wait,
They
the
don't
new,
make them like
the
that
pumps were
anymore.
put in 88?
The pumps that are down there now
Right.
were put in there in 1988.
The
Oh,
rebuild
no,
ones
no,
or
no,
the, I was gonna
sorry.
say, that
No,
doesn't,
no, no,
that
no,
doesn't
no,
make
no,
sense.
I'm sorry, that's when it was rebuilt.
That's what I was gonna say, I'm like, wait a minute, we only
Uh,
got 3 years out of a new pump.
Those pumps are, hold on.
27 years old, isn't that what you said?
No, that was the pumps at Webb
Yeah.
Lane are, they're older than that. They were rebuilt in 1988.
I would hope that they were put in the 60s then. So we got like 20 out of it. Cause if I get 12 out of a $3,000 rebuild, then I'm definitely rebuilt rather than new.
Well, some of them frames, I don't know if they're acid frames or not, but it almost, like, something, you get done by Shrek or somebody good, those things run forever.
Well, that's what I'm saying, if we're looking at 10, even 10, now it looks like we have, you're saying it was rebuilt in 88, and that's the last time we dealt with it. That's
26 years.
26 years on a rebuild.
He's-
So-
He's saying the controller's not working too, so. maybe-
No, I'm wrong. I'm sorry, I'm wrong, Matt. Because I got, Webb Lane is what we replaced
Right.
those two. It was September of 1988 is when they put those two pumps in.
New.
New, two ABS pumps, yes.
Okay, so that's 88.
Yep, and then they were rebuilt, in '07. Webb Lane pumps, removed pump one for repair, had pump rebuilt, reinstalled pump. That was $3,700, and that was done by TAM Enterprises, pump number one. And 5/28/08, Webb Lane Pump Station, removed pump number two for repair, operator, crane, mechanic. That didn't need as much.
Is it the motor they're rebuilding or the pump?
No, these were the two pumps.
Okay, so the motors, maybe it's just the pump needs maintenance and you put a new.
New seals and
automatic.
tellers
Yeah,
and stuff.
Yeah,
Well, and here you go again, and this was 5/28/08. This has all been done before I was down there. And here's 6/16/08, same pump, Webb Lane Pump Station, pump number two, rebuilt and reinstalled. Rebuilt pump, new cords, bearings, crane, and it was $2,300. So that was 2 months. They did it in May, and here's the two purchase orders. And then they had to take that same pump back out in June and do it again, and they did more to it this time. So,
And taking it out is a whole nother like $1,000.
yeah, because they have to
Right.
have a crane.
Yeah,
It's a-
They have a crane with an operator.
so do we know for a fact we have to rebuild the pumps, or is there, as Bob was saying, is there something, and I'm not trying to short your budget, is there something we can do to these pumps to get them going nice? Give us another year, year and a half, so that we can put the money aside to give you a new pump, and then we'll be good for another 15, 20.
I mean, like I said, they're working. I can't guarantee you that they're gonna last through the year.
I mean, guarantee we're gonna be here tomorrow.
Exactly. I mean, we can take a chance, but if they go, that's something that
Right.
we're gonna have to fix because,
yeah, there's no,
yeah, I mean,
There's no, well, I mean, technically you have to.
there's nothing, you know,
Well, again, in a lot of cases, that's what your contingency's for.
Right.
So that's gonna be your, to some degree, your backup. If you notice, that bumped up the contingency
Right.
with the consideration about what we were talking about with overtime and payroll. So,
Could you do me a favor from the company you're looking to get the pumps from? Could they give us a standard 12, 15, no, you get new from us, you're getting 20 years. We're gonna warranty however many, but your traditional life is 18 and a half years on a new pump. Just so we have an idea of what, when we break down the numbers, you know, do we need to rebuild it one more time while we put aside $15,000 rather than get the 15 now on a year that we may not have the money.
I know, because I know we replaced the pumps a couple of years ago at Webb Lane and their ABS pumps. I don't know if this is what you're asking for, but I know just the manufacturer's warranty alone on those pumps is 5 years. And when we replace these, we're looking to use ABS pumps. So and it's a 5-year, you know,
Warranty on the pump.
yeah, because we have
Pump
that.
itself, not the motor.
Yeah, on the pump, yes, on the pump itself, so that I know, the rest of it, I'd have to,
Okay. What else you got?
oh, that's it for G 120. Now G 130, I'll start with G 130.2, equipment. The first thing is the ISCO automatic samplers. We have 2 of them. These are our samplers, our composite samplers that we use to run our samples for the county, that the county picks up. These are 12 years old. They're refrigerated samplers with pumps on the top of them. I can't tell you what the life is supposed to be on them. I mean, according to Joe Murphy bought these 12 years ago, and I guess before that, he said since the plant has been built, he bought
Right.
some. So it's not, you know, they're plastic, they're out in the weather, the rain and all. And I mean, I'm not sure, but the refrigeration unit on one of them, the influence sampler, I believe is going, because that one's, the sample temperature, they're supposed to be maintained at a certain degree when they're turned into the county, and we have to record those temperatures every week, and what, the one on the influence sampler is probably 5 degrees higher than the effluent one. And if we have to replace a refrigeration unit, I mean, I don't know if it's feasible to do that or just get new samplers. I haven't looked into what the parts cost for them and to have somebody, because they are computerized too.
There's 2 of them?
Yes, there's 2 of them.
You could do one and not the other, or you could do both at the same time? You're saying one, you're not sure if one's working?
Yeah, I know
one's not?
one, I think the refrigeration unit's going. I mean, I'd like to keep them, because they're both the exact same thing. One's just the influent, one's the effluent. And when you're dealing with the temperatures, if this one's brand new and the temperature on this,
I understand.
I'd rather
How do we
keep-
know, how can we find out for a fact that there's a problem with it? You're thinking there is, but how do we actually? is there
well,
someone-
we put money into it, or we've had to replace the pump on top a couple of times, because all it is, it squeezes a hose, it turns and turns and turns, and and we've put numerous pumps on both of them. We replace the hoses all the time. The doors on the top of the one down at the effluent, like I said, it's out in the sun, and that's getting ready to break off, and that covers the computer. I mean, we could, I'm sure a door is not that much money to put, you know, buy another door, but when you're spending little, you know, this, and I think it's more feasible to just replace the samplers than to, and like I said, I'd rather have 2 new ones than to buy one, because it's based on temperatures with that, and if the temperatures are off, which they are right now, it's,
Okay,
the other thing, and I went over this with Anthony, we just found this out, and this is gonna be something that the board can discuss and let me know how you wanna handle it. The influent pump system, that's the heart of the sewer plant. The water comes in, goes through the influent pumps, that's what pumps it up through the plant. We had a problem in our control panel, and we had optimum controls down right around Christmas time. They told us that the 3 variable frequency drive units that are in those pumps in the control panel, the company's out of business. And he said, you cannot get parts for them anymore. The only parts that are available are parts that you can find on the internet. So what he said to me was that it would be in your best interest to start looking into replacing those drives. This is the price to replace all three of them at once with, including the installation. I think I have copies for everybody.
And you're saying this is on its way out right now?
No,
Or they're not working?
I explained it to Anthony, no, they're working,
Okay.
they're working fine. The problem is,
They're obsolescence.
Right, I got it.
they're obsolete. If something happens, it's done. You're not, I mean, he said, other than going on the internet and finding parts, you're not gonna find parts.
Nice.
Good catch. Thank you. I always grab extra. I've done this before.
Can you go to a commercial break?
Oh, good man, thank you.
And actually, I get, looking at this, he's given, if we went and got all three at the same time,
Right,
he's actually given us a little bit of a deal. I just noticed that the other
Right.
day too, looking at this. He's saying if I do one a year, because I told him that they may, that might be what the village board wants to do, replace, it's gonna save $2,000 to do all three of them at once.
well, if two of them break down, can you run the plant on one?
You can, as long as the flows are down.
So if one breaks down, you can run it on two as long as the flows are down. If two break down, you can run on one as long as the flows are down.
Right.
Did you get any other quotes from any other?
No, to be honest with you, I don't even know where, these are the people that put it in, these are the people that we call for all, this control panel is, I think you use them for your,
Same company we use.
I don't know who else to call about this kind of stuff. This is all that we call, they know this control panel, like I
They
said.
fabricate their own control panels.
I'm okay with that,
Specifications.
with the exception of, I'm okay with, these guys are gonna give us a deal, we're working with the whole nine. We've got to go out to, it's not even about the whole bid process or whatever. We need to have two other companies put numbers in so we know these guys are friends and we like them and they're working with us, and this guy's giving us a deal, or is he? Is it $8,000 from four other companies? We don't know because we've always worked with these guys. We have got to go out, and I know we've built relationships up and I'm not looking to break them down, but we have to go out there and see, is this, because I've seen this happen with companies, and this guy justifies it because he's like, look, I'm always there for you, so I'm gonna get the extra $4,000 out of you. It happens every day, so we have to go out and make sure we're getting the best price.
These are just controllers to slow it up and speed it up.
Yeah, they're safe, this
DC drive?
Safetronic, yeah.
Yeah.
How, Bob, being an electrician, how often do they recycle these type of things? Like, is this something that typically gets, you have them installed and then they have a useful life and then they get pitched, or is there a second life on these solid
It may
street?
just be a question of, is he changing the enclosure or just changing the components in it? Probably. It says, equipment included in our quotation is NEMA 1 variable frequency drives, locks, relays, terminal blocks, wire. Something that could be, a motor hangs up and binds up and it could smoke the drive tomorrow if they put a new one in. There's no
Do you
guarantee.
think there's an aftermarket for these though?
For this stuff, you mean to unload it? No, because nobody can touch it, because nobody wants to guarantee, put in electronic stuff. If I buy a new piece of equipment, install it, take it back out, and bring it back, they won't take it
They won't
back.
take it.
They won't give you a refund. As soon as I take it out of the box, that's
That's
it.
it.
There's no
Yeah.
market for it.
So there's no market
No.
for used?
No.
Controllers.
So basically, I'm sure there's other guys that do this, maybe we can find out who does, I'm sure there's a ton of them, it's just that you've had good luck with these guys and you like working with them, and I understand that completely. But just to crunch numbers like that.
Right, and I have no problem staying with them as long as,
It's competitive.
yeah,
I mean,
that's the
it-
biggest thing on everything.
And I have no problem getting other prices, but I think the main reason is not because we've been with them, it's because they're the ones that, like he said, they build their own cabinets. They built this cabinet, so they know all the ins and outs of it, and especially with what we're dealing with here, that's like the heart and soul of the plant, so I don't want somebody in there that, I'm not calling Trico Electric to come, oh yeah, put that, give me your, $500, well, I don't think so, because if they mess it up, we're screwed down there. I mean, that's the heart of the
With
plant.
all the investment that the village has made in the sewer department, this is kind of a small.
No, it is a
investment.
lot of money, you know,
Yeah.
and I guess we could find out what in essence the DC drive costs and then just gauge it ourselves.
And have it on the shelf ready to go, you know, the vendor and so on, ready to go if you, because I think the probabilities of all three going down or two going down consecutively is very small. But when that first one goes down, maybe that's the time to put all three in.
I see this as a multi-year budget thing. It would not to necessarily, I don't wanna replace something that's working. But let's put some money aside, because being the heart and soul of the plant, we wanna make sure that money's there when need be. And I personally don't even have a problem with you, once we've checked a couple of the prices, reaching out to this guy and saying, you know, we're putting money aside, if it goes, we're going with you, can we lock down at this? We're gonna call. You know, we get two go, we're down to one, it's time to go. I'm not gonna wait for the last one to go. We gotta replace it. Is that cool, John?
Right, and the only thing is, if we get two down,
How long is the turnover? Get it in and out.
that I don't know. I would say a day or two, I mean,
All right, so
but,
firm it up with this guy, get us some other prices so we know we're competitive. And, you know, it's
How about
a,
the sewer department reserve fund?
that's what I'm saying. But there's 3 or 4 items here I'd like to do for sewer fund reserve.
But we're talking about budgeting for one.
I'm talking about
in
budgeting the
reserve.
partial $10,800, seeing if we get this guy to lock in on that now, saying, we're gonna go with you, we're budgeting money, we're gonna do it when these go down.
But
can lock 'em in on a
their quotes are
price.
only good for 60 days.
What's that?
You're only good for
The
60.
prices are good for 60.
I know that, that's why we're gonna go back to him, let him know that we're going with him, you gotta firm it up, we want more than 60 days. Or, there's 5 or 6 other companies out there, and our water and our sewer department are gonna start looking. Do you want us to stay with you? Because we want to. We've made a good relationship, we have a good relationship. What we need to know is, if ours go down, because they're in service right now, we don't need new ones. But if ours go down, we need to turn it over. Is it all of a sudden gonna be $20,000 because you know we need it? We can't play that game. And that's why we have to have 2 or 3 other companies already in place, where if we don't get something in writing, that we have that ready where, you know, I'm gonna call Phil, you know, that's fine. You want $20,000? No problem. I'm calling someone else who's gonna give it to me for $12,000. It's a little bit higher than what you said, but at least he's gonna stay to his word.
Mayor, also, I think the way to look at this would be to contact a couple other municipalities that have the controllers that's similar to
Yeah.
ours, and get their Rolodex too. And have these vendors on a Rolodex that you know, nobody uses Rolodex anymore, put them on the computer, all right? But the point is, you do? But have them there ready to go, because, you know, again, in the big scheme of things, this is not a huge expense, but planning ahead for it is ideal. It's absolutely, you know, instead of coming to the board during a board meeting saying, oh, you know, we just lost a controller, it's obsolete, and this way you almost have it ready to go, but you don't have to carry the inventory, so you're not paying for it yet. So maybe the board considers a reserve fund, an actual reserve fund, that the money gets put away for sewer. There's a coded fund for that, and then that money, then you know it's there if the inevitability happens.
I know you guys have reached out, and you have a network of, between water and sewer, different municipalities, but that's something I am gonna formally ask, that's something that's key. Because they may have something on the shelf that's been sitting there for 3 years and they have the same system we do. And they may, you know what, we don't even need this anymore, you might be getting a discount. So we have got to network out to at least Orange and Rockland County, everyone. And that's something as a department head,
Except for Goshen.
except for
Goshen's taxes and debt is so high because of their sewer, that whole disaster, that lawsuits, everything.
And that's something that, again, is a quick phone call could solve 2 or 3 problems. Where you say, I don't even know who to call, we're in touch with the 5 or 6 different sewer guys, everyone's got a different one. Now you have 5 different companies to choose from. And somebody, with today's technology, I know these guys built this back in the day and everything's nice. Today's technology, some of these companies are coming out with much better sewer, water, any controls, whatever, for a lot less, because they're utilizing today's technology. Where these guys might be just utilizing what they have from 10 years ago, 12 years ago. So we've gotta stay on the cutting edge on this, because it could be a matter of 10, 20, 30, $50,000. But I agree, that's something that we're definitely gonna discuss, setting up a sewer fund. We will address this in this budget, just, okay?
And for full disclosure, the village of Goshen, it really, basically, the land, they have a big problem with the land. It has really nothing to do with their sewer system, so you can talk to them. I don't want the mayor calling me saying,
It's
"Would
like,
you
and
just
it'll
throw me
happen.
under the
What are
bus
you
for?"
thinking? All right, John.
So that would bring, in G 8130.2, the equipment total with those 2 items would be $21,216. Last year's equipment total was $61,000.
Why?
Well, we had we had an RBC motor that we had in there, and it was some other items that we had to replace. A lot of it we took, because we got a lot of our stuff, yeah, through the two big projects that we just got done.
The speed reducer and, wasn't it a motor / speed reducer?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't put in for another one of those this year. We have 2 down there. So we have one that goes, we have it in it. I mean, I was planning on doing 1 every year until we got, because we have 3 to be replaced. We have 2 in reserve, new ones. And I think we have 2 more after that, and then we'd have all 8 done. I didn't do it because I wanted to keep the budget. I mean, I know that we have 2 down there. If one goes, we have a backup. I didn't put in for another RBC motor this year because I wanted to keep the budget down.
Thank you.
G8130 contractual, electric, $38,000. Fuel oil, $33,000. That number could actually go down now that we're mixing that tank, the mixers in, because it's gonna heat better.
Right.
So hopefully we won't spend, we don't know what we're gonna spend, but hopefully that's gonna go down. Telephones, fax, Nextel. Nextel is actually the cell phones. Telemetry, that's the alarm system down there, and the computer. That's all together, all those total for the year should be around $3,500. Outside lab fees, that's our cost that we send our samples out to Orange County Labs, that's $9,000.
Is that, we have sent them out to Orange County Labs, is there any competitive?
They're basically all around the same price. The best thing about Orange County Labs, they come and pick ours up. I know you have to go drop yours off, right?
Yeah.
We got prices last year from, and you use EnviroTest.
Yep.
And their prices were similar to Orange County Labs, and they weren't picking them up.
All right, here's another area where the 2 of you need to get together then. If there's samples, are you doing it about the same time or all different times? Is there any way to get either them to pick up so no one's gotta go out there? Is the sewer similar price and then we don't have to go out? Is there a reason why we stay with these people?
I stay with the viral test, due for the continuity of the testing, the quality of it. They're my resources if I need something with samples. They're right on Fulton Avenue, Newburgh. So if I have a bad sample right away or something goes bad, I can get over there within 15 minutes and get another sample. I'm required to do so many samples through the state.
Right, where's
Everything
Orange
I do-
County?
Blooming Grove.
everybody has their own preferences. We use Virotest, never had a problem with them. They've been working with us and
It's not about a problem, it's about having, again, we may save only $300. And I'm not looking, I don't wanna save $20 and throw off relationships you've built over all these years, or possibly not getting the tests that you want. But could we save by utilizing the same
we can come up
company?
with it.
What I'm asking for is you to at least look into it. Again, as Ed said, we're budgeting for what we're budgeting for. What I'm looking for is the two of you to get together, between the two companies you're using now, find out one or two more, can we save $300, $400, $500? And will they pick up? That's what we have to start doing every year, constantly, just like we rebid all the things we go out. You guys have to do that within your own departments, and combine whenever able. So again, we're offering you double the amount of testing, we're looking for a 15% break. Or you gotta pick up both, and we're looking for 5% off, because then we're gonna call, and we'll call Bob and see if we can get his sewer. You know, I assume they have to do the same thing.
I assume, yeah, they
So-
should have to.
I mean, this is where we have to start sharing services. No matter what happens, we gotta start sharing some of these services now to capture that $200, $300, $400 savings. You captured on 20 lines, now you've got $30,000. So that's a request I'm asking you to follow up, another one, follow up on that, budget, as you have budgeted, we're not asking you to change it right now. And if we find some savings, we're good to go.
The other thing we have to make sure is that they do, if you ask them Virotest, they gotta do the tests that I run.
Right.
And
Yeah,
then
make sure
vice
they do.
versa.
Yeah, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but we've got to look into it.
We'll get together and we'll come up with a.
Fantastic.
for our staff
Keep going.
needs.
I'm sorry, Mayor, one of the things that the mayor's talking about is 80 to 90% of customers just get the renewals.
Right.
And these companies are used to that. If you go, a good example is our auditors this year for doing the financials. They came in with an aggressive price to keep the business. A couple of years ago at Town Hall, the elevator company was basically told, look, you know what, this is outrageous. They lowered their prices somewhere around 40%. Because what happens is that most people don't ask. The ones that do ask, it's a lot harder to keep a customer, to get a new customer than to keep the ones you already have. So a lot of the economies of scale that the mayor's talking about, where you guys maybe do testing with the same firm, you actually might shave off 5–10%. And again, that's maybe that 10% you can put into the reserve fund or into some other activity. Okay, so that, because if the testing is just as good from the new scenario, you'll be able to take those residual funds and benefit in another way. So just a mindset.
To encourage you to do it, as Ed said, I wouldn't mind when we do this and sit down and say, look, listen, it's not gonna go in a general fund. Save money. We'll put it back in your reserve fund. So when you need things, and that's, basically you'll end up coming back because now we don't have to spend it later. But this way, if you do the work, you'll get the extra money in your reserve fund so that you get the things you need. If you don't, we're just gonna cut across the board and everyone's gonna suffer. Johnny?
Speedy's permit program fees, that's our permit for our sewage permit for the sewer plant. Last year was $8,800. We put in for $9,000 because it's been going up every year so we have no control over that. Laboratory equipment and supplies, that's for probes for our pH meters, thermometers, the buffer solutions, stuff like that. To date, right now, we spent $1,750. We're putting in for $2,000 because by June 1st, I'm sure that's close to what we're gonna spend on that. Protective clothing and safety equipment, we put in $500. We don't always spend that every year, but we buy gloves. We work with caustic soda, which is acid. We buy rubber gloves for that. We buy face shields full face shields, not stuff that's in the contracts that we're supposed to buy for.
And that's something, please never skimp on.
Right, right, so we have that kind of stuff, and that's what we put that, we don't always spend all of that. 1-ton chlorine cylinders, for the past 3 years, they've been coming in at $2,000 each. We're averaging 16 containers a year, which is $32,000. I mean, they haven't raised, the only ones that bid on it is Jones Chemical.
That's who you get it from too, right?
Yes, that's our chemical bid package that goes out
Right.
May 1st of every year.
And you guys get it
You bid together?
Yes, I had the whole package for water, sewer,
Okay.
Right.
and that goes
Have
out.
we touched base with West Point yet about theirs?
They go through, they have pretty much the same contractors also, but their bidding is different from ours.
I know that, but he's offered us to jump in on theirs depending if it's a better rate. Again, we're in a budget here,
Right.
you've got to get to them before they make their, however, bids and whatnot, soon. So that we can, if they're getting it because they're a government entity or the size or whatever, and they're getting, instead of 32,000, they're paying 27, it's $5,000. You know, because West Point, unlike the village, West Point has 7 people dedicated to making these calls, where they're not in charge of the sewer, their job is to call around, get a better rate, do this, do that, do that, so they have the people to constantly follow up and get that better rate. He's invited us to join him, so we have to take advantage, at least get the numbers. And again, as you said, like our state bid is probably lower for the salt than they were getting, but if we don't reach out and get the numbers, we'll never know. I need a report. I'll give you a month. I need a report from both of you that you've touched base with them, at least on your main chemicals. And I'm looking at 7. Just get the numbers. I'm not looking for a 60-page report.
The question I had for, because when we first talked about this, I was told that we would save money in bulk, even if in that West Point would store. Here's the question that I have. There's no way you're gonna store a 1-ton chlorine cylinder, and we're not gonna be able to go up there and get it. If we had, like, they're gonna save money, you would probably save money if you got 10 1-ton chlorine cylinders, but you're talking about training, different driver's licenses and stuff for the guys that would have to go up from Humble. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know about storing hazards.
No.
Well, no, not even the storing. If we're buying it in bulk,
Right.
and we're getting the conversation's gotta happen.
Right.
This is one of the problems, is we have this conversation, which to me is a Bog Meadow issue. We have a conversation, and then we come up with 3 things why it probably won't work, and then it dies and we never ask anybody. And yet the savings was there. We
Right.
don't know that the manufacturer won't deliver it to us when we want it, because we're 2 minutes away. We're buying under them, but you will deliver to here at the location that,
Oh.
at the time you want it, because they're buying so much. Again, we're not looking to add more issues to what we already have. What we're looking to do is make the process easier and less expensive. So if the process says it comes to you now, when you want it, that's what we're really looking for. And maybe West Point has all the material to say, we have the drivers and everything else, we will store it and we'll bring it over when you need it. We don't know until that conversation happens. But what we're looking for is not for them to store it, and not for them to hold on to a year's supply, because I don't believe they do that now.
We're just looking for a rate reduction.
Yeah, that's it.
I'll reach out.
And if we're saving $500 not having to do anything, just because you jumped on the tail end of West Point, we save $500.
The supplier terminology is called just-in-time logistics or delivery. And a lot, like all your car manufacturers, that's how they do it. They don't have all those parts. The manufacturers deliver that to them on a schedule when those cars are coming down the line. So a lot of suppliers will operate that way. The only thing with hazardous chemicals is that there's a lot of specialty licenses and so on, and
Right.
transportation rules. So, but again, like the mayor said, ask the question, budget for what you know today. And I think that's a great proposal of, the savings goes into a reserve fund for the department. that's kind of a good idea.
The more discussions you have with West Point, and even, again, if we don't do it with West Point, maybe we do it with Cornwall, and even Goshen. But, if we get, if we get a group rate, then you're talking to this guy on a regular basis. Now, he may solve a problem for you you don't have yet. He may have a problem in his plan and go, geez, we're doing this, this, and this. All of a sudden, you're like, "Phew, I better check that." And now all of a sudden you checked it, and we fixed it before we had the problem. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to set more communication, more networking, be proactive, rather than wait for everything to break. Continue, Jim.
The polymer, that's for our belt press. We're budgeting for 20 bags. Last year it was $309 per bag, 1,100 pounds, $3,500. Sodium bicarb, 50 bags, is what we're putting in for. Last year we put in for 100 bags at they were $13 a piece. We didn't use any last year because basically the digester was out. The sodium bicarb is actually for the digester when we need to raise the pH, and we didn't really have a digester. It was empty most of the year, you know, so we may use a little more of that this year.
So we didn't actually buy any then, as we're saying.
No, we didn't have to buy any last year. So, I mean, if everything works out right with this mixer, we shouldn't have to buy any this year either, but if we do, that's why that one
Gotcha.
is there. Sodium hydroxide, that's a caustic soda. To date, we've gone through 6,270 gallons at $2.25 a gallon. We're asking for $14,000 for that. That's based on last year's prices. We don't know the price till we go out to bid on that. Lime, last year we asked for 50 pound bags, 10 bags at $18 each, $180. I don't think we didn't buy that last year either. We use that when we have problems with odor in the Headworks building on our grit. And with the new grit conveyor, we shouldn't have to buy these this year, but we want to put the money there just in case, because it's 90 degrees. If we don't have it, and we have a problem, but hopefully we won't. With that new grit conveyor, everything should be good. Is there any questions on that one?
The service and maintenance contracts?
Oh, sorry, I missed that. That's the chlorinators, the polymer system, boilers. I added the generator in on this one. The elevator, the sprinkler system, the influent pumps and controls, that's optimum control. Total with all of that, $13,000. That's for all the maintenance contracts at the sewer plant.
Now, these are the how many individual contracts are there here? Or is it one guy that does all of it?
No, the chlorinators and polymer system is one. The boilers, I get Pat Kelly. He's
Okay, I like that.
right. So he does, and there's two boilers. There's a digester boiler and the regular boiler in the main building. He does both of them. The generator, that's peak power. The elevator is Mid-Hudson Elevator. They come every other month. The sprinkler system, we used to do that once a year when the village changed insurance companies. They make us do a sprinkler thing twice a year now. They come down, basically they look at the heads, they do a pressure test, and if there's nothing wrong, they're out the door. That used to be a once a year thing. They wanted it when they changed insurance companies to a cheaper insurance company. The insurance company wanted it 4 times a year. And then the then mayor said, no way, we'll give you 2, you're not getting, but it used to be just once. I don't know why, what the rule, what the basis is on doing it twice a year, because nothing really changed, but the influent pumps and controls, that's, like I said, that's optimum controls. They, there's floats and stuff down there. We have that's a basic service contract that we have with them. It doesn't cover that much, but they kind of let us know if there is a problem to prevent a bigger problem, if you know what I mean. And that's it for that.
Questions on that? Okay, next.
Next, contractual sludge disposal fees, approximately 180 tons at $150 a ton, $27,000. Grit and screenings, we cut this in half because we're doing 20 tons. We cut it down to 10. That could actually be cut in half depending on how this new grit conveyor works at $3,500. Lubricants, that's oil. Most of that money is for the RVC oil. It's 25 gallons of oil in each one of those things. And most of that money goes just to that. Because there's further down, the electrical, plumbing, emergency labor, repair and parts, some of the oil that we buy comes out of that money. The 15, I raised it this year only because to date, we've spent $5,963. I put it up to 15,000. I gotta look back in my other paperwork. There was something that we wanted to do that I wanted to come out of that money, but I'll go back to that. Cleaning, painting, maintenance,
How much are we putting in for lubricants?
$3,600.
36. Sorry, go on.
Cleaning, painting, maintenance, etc. To date this year, we've spent $13,929. I'm putting in $10,000. Again, last year it was, I have a list. What comes out of that, for instance, B-Rose Hardware, that's you need garden hoses, whatever, wash down hoses. We spent $3,160 there. ChemSearch is a company where you get spray paint for the marking paint, some cleaning products, stuff like that. We spent $1,800 there. East Coast Environmental, we get regular degreaser, that's the cleaner degreaser for our floors and stuff like that, $558 there. Durham's Automotive, that's changing the oil on the truck, belts and hoses for, like the RVCs, some of them are belt driven, we buy belts, our air blowers are belt driven, the air filters on the air blowers.
How come we're not having our guy do the changing the oil and everything?
We do, but they charge us our budget, and that's where that comes out of. Walter
No,
came,
okay, yeah, no, you said Napa, or you said Durham.
yeah, well, that's the bill that like when
This
Walter
applies.
goes and buys the filters and stuff, he charges it to us, so that's part of what that comes out of. Eagle Fire and Safety, that's, if he has to do, when he comes down, he does a fire extinguisher inspection. That, we put into that money, that was $382.65. Granger, $104.80, that could, I'm not sure what that was, but it could, electrical fuses, stuff like that. Yeah, exactly, anything. Hoffman's, again, it could be paint, salt for the winter and stuff, that was $2,700. Charles Merrill, that was like office supplies, $333. Perkins, that's the paper products, paper towels, garbage bags, toilet paper, $1,345, and USA Blue Book is another thing where you can basically buy anything. We usually it's either USA or Granger that we go in to get two prices from them, and that was $2,900.
What was $2,900?
USA Blue Book that we spent at USA Blue Book. So basically, that's where cleaning, painting, maintenance, that's what that money is for. The electrical, plumbing, emergency, labor, repair parts. Emergency, that's just, this $15,000, that's, I guess you could say that's contingency for us. I mean, if something happens, electrical, if a panel goes, we're paying the labor on that, repair, and the part, you know, if we have to buy parts. To date, we've spent in emergency down there on electrical stuff was $5,900.
That's this, John, that's this year?
That's to date right now.
To date
yes.
this year?
Yes.
Okay, and how much are you budgeting for that?
We put in 15,000. That's what we put in last year. And we've only spent
Oh, I
59.
thought you put in 25,000 last year.
Not under that, under electrical.
How was your experience last year on that?
That,
No, not the fifth, not, you said year to date, that's this year.
yeah, that's this
How
year.
about, how about last year? Do you recollect how much you had to spend last year? If you don't have it readily available.
I
it's okay.
might have that in, you know what?
That's all right.
No, I don't. No, I don't.
Yeah, I just think that stuff like this, if you get a little bit of the history, you
Right.
budget for the history, don't budget the contingency in your regular spending. Put it in contingency. Again, that way, it doesn't, it becomes very clear if there is little spikes, like an issue that comes up, because the contingency would have to be used to fund it. So the board would physically be involved in that discussion.
Okay.
So maybe look back at the history, and then if you're budgeting 15, and again, this is just my recommendation, if you're budgeting 15 and your experience in the last couple of years has been 7 or 8, then budget 8. And if you strongly feel that you might have an experience that's gonna be above 8, then maybe put some in the contingency fund.
Okay, and that's basic equipment repair and replacement. We've spent year to date $21,645. This is for bigger items like pumps that break down, or if, well, we're gonna have an extra RBC, but things that we don't know is going to happen. That's basically what that number is. I guess you could say another contingency thing for bigger items in the budget, so.
Yes, that's exactly what I was about to say.
Right, is what that is,
And how much is going on that line?
20,000.
Well, and not so much contingency, again, this is what, we might be able to break it out a little bit better so it's clearer. When you talk pumps replacement, because we didn't know, this is something where we do need to have a budget line item that, like a contingency, but at the same time, a new pump isn't really gonna go. When we have the older pumps, we need that 3 to 5 year, only put 1,500 aside for the next 3 to 5 years. Now we have $8,000, and now we have the money for the pump. Put it in the reserve for the sewer, and it's there. It's not something we have to pull out of contingency. So that's what I'm looking for during our department head meetings, is start targeting all these, the older stuff and saying, you know what, this is gonna go in the next 3 years. So that is something that we start putting on the budget on a regular basis, so that our reserve funds, specifically for sewer or specifically for water, are maintained properly.
just as an example, I forgot that I brought this up. Equipment repair and replacement. Darlington equipment, and this is stuff that we didn't have in the budget that had to be done. It was RBC work, where it was a shaft that went $4,995. Rapid pump, one of our pumps for the belt press had to be rebuilt. It was leaking, $3,900. Another pump, rapid pump, it was for one of the newer pumps that the village replaced that wasn't under warranty, $2,050. Trico Electric, they come down, because we don't have electricians that work down there. I mean, they come down if we have a problem in our panels and stuff like that. $5,478. So that's where that number, where we get that number. I mean, I guess to date, last year was actually $10,963.50 is what we spent.
Would that be a normal year, that trend?
A normal year up to this year, yes. I think it's gonna go way down because of all the work
The
that was
new
just,
work?
all that work, especially in the Headworks building. Because some of Trico's stuff was in that Headworks building. I mean, Bobby was down there and saw the stuff that was rotted out.
It should be good for a while.
Yeah, that's gonna be good for a while, so they're gonna say, that's gonna be a big cut with that.
Okay.
With,
Well, that's important for the board members. Remember, we have a $400,000 note that we took in June. That has a debt service on it now. So the whole idea here is that we have a new debt service. We're gonna have to, because of that repair, gonna have to have lower costs in our contingencies, in our contractuals and our equipment lines. Because otherwise, if we're still budgeting the same way in our contractuals and our equipment lines, and we have this new debt service, we're actually escalating our budget, where the whole point of this refurbishment is, okay, we're taking on the debt, but our operating costs should go down because the equipment's new and should break down less often. So I would recommend that we have that mindset that on the O2s and the O4s, with all this new investment, that the O2s and O4s should come down. The expense levels should come down, because we gotta make up the difference for the debt service.
I understand that, but how do you approach that number though on his end?
Well, that's kind of what I'm getting to right now, where John's saying that, okay, we have an experience level, okay, $8,000 for the last couple of years, let's say in a certain segment, pumps or whatever. But now with all this new equipment, that might be $1,000 or $2,000, because the probability of a failure, because it's brand new, is relatively small. So that delta of $6,000, well, guess where that money goes? Pay the debt service. Okay, so in the budgeting, that's got to be part of the discussion, that recognizing that we made large investments in the sewer department, our operating costs for repair and everything else should come down. And we need to find that money, because, and again, that's why I mentioned, if you're expecting that your experience level is going to go down, pull that extra out, okay? Because what's going to happen is it's going to allow you to then fund the debt service and not have to increase the budget dramatically. Because if you're still funding like you do under the old terms before you had all these repairs, and then you add the debt service on there, you're gonna increase your budget amounts disproportionately. And what you'll end up is at the end of the year, you'll have a pretty large balance in your 04. Okay? Which you won't get there because you won't blow the budget that way. You're gonna find it one way or another. So it's just a train of thought to consider your trends and then what's happened to adjust those trends. And you said it right on. You said we got a lot of new equipment, so a lot of this isn't gonna happen. So we gotta adjust our budgets accordingly.
John?
The next thing, engineering fees, we put in $1,000. We may not use that. I don't know if anything happens down there where we need an engineer.
And can I ask you, John, how come we're not coding that as up in the engineer line, up at the top, 1440.04? Has it just never been done up there?
Yeah, I've never, 1440.04, I don't even know what that
Is
is.
that what we should be doing?
Yeah, it's an engineering cost to the sewer department. It's a G fund engineering cost.
Typically, there was no sewer engineering, because
Right.
they usually ran it along with projects.
In the
So there-
capital fund.
Yeah, in capital. So there was only an A fund for engineering.
But my recommendation is if you're allocating money for engineering, again, that will get lost trying to find trends. So put it up in your engineering line so that if you do spend the money, there's a history. And you can know, like next year, if you end up spending 2,000 on engineering, the board then knows, okay, we need to plus up engineering, we went over budget. Okay, so do we want to move the 1,000
Yes.
to engineering?
Johnny?
What do you do with engineering?
Up
The
to-
engineering fee up to actual engineering line for sewer,
What was the 1,000?
rather just in the contractual
And
expenses.
what was that number that you still,
G 1440.04.
14?
40.04.
Training in schools, $500, that's for contact hours, we go to a few of them a year. We always get the villages, we get your permission with. Clothing allowance, that's contractual, $1,500, that's for myself, David and Tim, that's in the contract, I think, whatever they get.
Yeah, I forget what it was.
Yeah, so that's a set number, that's,
Mr. Murphy doesn't get it because he's part-time?
right. So the total, G 8130 contractual expense total is
Exactly.
$241,080, and last year's was $258,580.
Any questions?
Mayor, I got just a couple of questions related to salary.
Mm-hmm.
John, last year, did you have any inputs on salary at all?
No, I did
So
not.
how was overtime amounts determined?
I do not know.
So you gave no inputs on what your expected overtime was?
I've done the budget the last 3 or 4 years, and I have never had input on any kind of payroll, overtime, none of that.
So who knows how much overtime you need?
The village hall should know that we have to they keep records of, I mean, they do our checks, so they.
No, I mean, we're planning right now, we're
Right.
planning for overtime needs, so that's kind of an input, because your department would know what your overtime requirements
Oh,
are.
I can go back, yeah, I can go back through each payroll, we keep copies of the payroll, and I can look at the
Well-
overtime, right.
I just, and again, this isn't, I'm not like, I'm not trying to grill you on
Was
this,
that
please don't take
treasurer
it that way.
and payroll basically came up with those numbers?
Yeah, treasurer would get the payroll report of overtime.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, as the
I-
board,
I
I don't, there's no science there.
Right.
Okay, because how is last year's overtime going to be able to help us determine what the overtime needs are gonna be? That's this whole planned overtime.
Exactly.
bill. Okay, so what I would say is, my recommendation is that, John, you would do an assessment, because remember, you talked to us last time, you said you had testing to do, you had certain things to do on the weekends and so on. There needs to be some input as to what your expected rate of overtime is gonna be. I'm not worried about the dollar amounts as far as what the cost per hour is, I'll worry about that. I'm talking about what your overtime frequency is going to be. All right, what is your weekly overtime that you can't escape it because of requirements on your department that you don't have the personnel that can do it during a regular time, or because this is why we're where we're at. Okay, we have, the sewer department last year had about $24,000 in overtime, okay? I, for the life of me, can't figure out how that number gets determined unless we look at it and determine what are the needs in the department. And when you're running, $24,000, that's part-timer and a half. So, do we need a part-timer? Is that the problem? Or do we just need to be a little more scientific as to how we determine it? And again, I'm not expecting you to come up with that right away. This is more educational. We have to look at this stuff more in a way that, why are we doing this? And if we can justify why we're doing it, then absolutely we have to. But to look at last year's overtime and say, okay, this is what this year's overtime is gonna be, I don't recommend to do that. I just don't know what you base that on.
On top of that, this is exactly what we were talking about before with giving you guys more ownership of your departments. You know that with the age of the sewer and water system, we're actually looking at more issues. Treasurer doesn't know that, the payroll doesn't know that. So this is something where you guys need to start working on that, and again, as Ed said, it's not gonna be tomorrow. This is something we're gonna be working on so that by next year, you have a handle on it for that budget, and you could be a little more concise, and in 3 years, then you're like, look, this is our thing, and this is why. And give us a breakout of a sheet. This is snow, this is that. Now, who could have predicted the snow this year? No one. But what we're more looking forward to is your predictions on breaks and this and that, and your scheduled overtime on the weekends, so that the board is more aware of where the money's being spent, so we can help you trim it down, again, to give you more of what you need when you're looking for it in your budget.
I did give you a copy of.
And that was a very good breakdown.
I do one quarterly, with me and Jack up there, and I did give the mayor.
And once you have that set up on a computer, it makes it a lot simpler.
And that's based on what your demand needs are.
It's all
And
broken
it's-
down,
and
it's broken down from water leaks, hydro flushing, alarms, utility markouts, snow removal, pool operations, daily operations on the weekends and holidays, storms. Everything is broken down, what our hours are for each one.
Okay,
And I go back for the last 5 years, and I can pretty much, any major events, we can look back and pretty much they all come in the ballpark.
Right. And you can break it out where it's, as you're saying, you know your scheduled overtime, that's gonna stay the same until we change something. You know that when you flush hydrants, we flush it this many times, this one, so that's a standard one. What we don't know is we don't know snow,
Biggest.
we don't know a break, but we know we've had this many over this many years, so we're gonna go for that number.
You can average them all up and it'll give you
Right.
a number to work with.
But we want you guys to have the ownership of that, rather than someone else tell you, by the way, this is the number you're having. When you're like, I need twice that much. You don't have, you're not gonna get, but, you can ask for it. But your input's critical, because we may not realize when the treasurer says, yeah, we're gonna go with $50,000, and you're like, I don't know if you understand, we spent 75 last year, and it was a light year. So that's why we want you to take more control of the budget process.
see, the problem for me is I see 24,000, and let's say with all the knowledge I have, you know what, let's cut it 50%, because 24,000 is too much money. How am I backing that up? You know what I'm saying? What am I using to determine whether it should be 12, 24, 28, 20? We have to be a little more scientific about how we're determining this. And again, that's why I asked you the question, John, because if you've never done it and never been told about it, then, it's not your fault, but we gotta maybe take that next step, so that we don't have a scenario like we have with overtime, where in a lot of ways, it's just on the appearance, and it might be, most of it might be justified, but it looks excessive. So finding a way to be scientific with it, and maybe, what Kevin's doing, maybe Kevin, you could share a copy with John, and John, you can take a look at it, maybe that's helpful, I don't know.
Well, I mean, as far as hourly, he's doing his quarterly. My hours on the bottom of my monthly report I have marked down, emergency overtime and the weekend overtime, planned overtime. So it's on the bottom of my monthly report every month. So I'm doing it monthly, not quarterly.
Okay, but what I'm saying is that, let's say the overtime that you had last month, well, how is that relevant to the overtime you would have next year in the same month? Are they correlated? Is there?
The only overtime that's gonna be the same is the planned overtime, the weekends. It's the same hours that we gotta work every week. Somebody's gotta be there Saturday morning, somebody's gotta be there Sunday morning, 3 hours Saturday, 3 hours Sunday to do the samples. And then every holiday, it's every day that you have to, somebody has to be at the plant every day, if it's a holiday. That's the only thing that we can put in where it would actually be a planned thing. The emergency overtime, yeah, I don't know what it's gonna.
You can't.
Yeah, I can't do that. I mean, I can give you what we did over the year, like how many sewer breaks and stuff like that, but
Unplanned overtime, if I may interrupt, is emergency markouts,
Right.
alarms, sewer
Right.
backups, snow removal, storms, the weather. The weather has an adverse effect between the water and sewer. Any variables like that, major fire, major incident, we don't know that, but usually it's our utility markouts is for water main, gas leaks, anything like that. We don't know when they're gonna happen. Storms, unpredictable. The age of the plants and the infrastructure itself is unplanned. You know, we could have, 3 breaks in a row or 3 blockages in a week. So you just try to get that variable, and take all the average them up, come up with a ballpark number of it. Alarms, it could just be a simple power outage or something that would trip all alarm panels off. We have no control over that. Well, we don't know till we get there.
But you're using history though,
Yeah,
because
we can look back.
statistically, in a year, you'll
Yeah,
probably
we have
have, you know, in any given year, you'll have a reasonability as to how much.
We can get you almost to the top of the mark to give you justification, so you know where to work with your numbers, what you need to input into your budget to
Okay.
match what our demands are.
Okay.
We can come up with something.
Yeah,
like that.
and then the other thing I need from the board is a determination as to what the board feels is a reasonable overtime plan. Okay, because, you know, look, I could go in and look at last year's and take the totals and add them to the payroll and say, okay, here's our salaries. I don't feel good about that. I wouldn't feel very comfortable about those numbers, okay? Because essentially what we're doing is that we might as well call that salary. So what I need from the board is instruction from, as to what's the scheme we're gonna use to determine our overtime.
I think, Mr. Magritta, if we could, let us give you 2 years, this year and last year's, our overtime for all the incidences we have. Let you make a decision off that with the board then.
I don't wanna make any decisions, I'll make recommendations.
Make recommendations, and let us give you this year's, last year's, let you decipher how we have it broken down, what was the major things of it. And then that gives you something to work with, and the board actual sees what, right, you had this many water leaks, this many alarms, markouts. Now you got something to work with, input, numbers, to get you right where, plus or minus, within a reasonable range.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, I think that that's a good idea.
We can do that, we can have that for you.
Do you have an idea of how we've been trending over, say, a 5-year period on breaks and the emergencies, not on overtime?
It's been, the weather's been so crazy lately. Plus, you gotta remember, our infrastructure's getting older year by year.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. Are the
Some-
numbers of
increasing or
incidents
decreasing?
increasing?
No, not with our brakes, pretty much.
Oh, knock
Just,
on wood.
we had a lot of emergency markouts, which is gas company, accidents. The weather has an adverse effect.